Whoa, ho, ho, ho. It's 7-Eleven Daily Summer with Bruce Scholl. So excited to be here. My God, what is going on? Thank you so much for being here. It is an extraordinary time to be alive, and I hope that you are enjoying your, what is today? May 28th. I hope you're enjoying your May 28th. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are watching, make sure to share this out. This is going to be a very, very interesting episode. I have a fantastic guest. I'm really looking forward to hearing his story, and I think you will be blown away by this episode. I have got a great man, Dr. LaFrance, joining me, and I'll bring him on here in a minute or two. But yeah, just get ready. If you have any questions, he's going to be here for the next 45 to an hour with us. We will probably have, I hope we're going to have some questions from people, but I'll try to get through all of those that I can. As usual, I love being here. What an extraordinary time to be alive. We are going through some major shifts in the world, and I appreciate you joining me. It's been a couple of days. Things are really moving as far as this shifting of the world. Anyway, I always like to start off by saying thank you, and I like to support local businesses. I am not your investment advisor, but I do suggest getting gold and silver. It has been very beneficial to my family, gold and silver. I buy it through nuggetstacker.com. Up at the top left-hand side, you'll see the QR code. If you use that QR code to get you a bit of a discount on your gold and silver. And you can even get a gold and silver subscription. Just sign up. Start off at $50 a month, or start off at $200 a month, whatever you like to. And it'll just slowly build up for you. They'll deliver it right to your home. If you have any questions, 1-866-644-2121. That's nuggetsacker.com. You can find it right through my website at unscrewthenews.com as well. And we're going to get into unscrewing some news here right away. So let's get into it. Before I get started, though, I like to say I'm coming to you from the heart of the battle-ready nation of Alberta. We bring you truth and optimism. Our goal is to break free from the media and the globalist mind control. It is May 28th, 2026. And I called this the episode number 284, MAID Man, Dr. J.R. LaFrance. It is a pleasure to have him. You know, we connected over an article that I had written for big media. And maybe I'll bring that up here. Maybe I'll just bring it up here right now, and I will show you this article. And we can talk about it here in a second, Dr. LaFrance. But this is the article. This is big media that I posted this article. The global expansion of euthanasia, lessons from history and practices worldwide. Anyway, this is an article that I wrote just talking about what I believe to be the slippery slope of this MAID program, especially here in Canada. We're going to get into some stats, but first of all, I want to bring on my guest here shortly. Here, stand by. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then I'll bring him on here. So stand by while I pull it up. All right, Dr. J.R. LaFrance. He graduated from University in Ottawa in 1968 and has worked as a general practitioner, gerontologist, and anesthesiologist in Cornwall, Ontario, for over 52 years. He became engaged with medical assistance in dying 2 to 3 years before Canadian law came into force, working with the BC Civil Liberties Association and Dying with Dignity Canada, and has been a MAID provider since the day the law came into force. He, like I said, he reached out to me, or he commented on that article that I wrote, and I wrote back to him hoping to start a dialogue. And luckily we have had a great conversation, and we wanted to continue it on here tonight, and, just actually have a respectful conversation. And before I'm going to bring him on, and then I'm going to read something. Dr. LaFrance, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for staying up late. I don't know if it's late for you, but where you are, it's 9 9:17. I'm just going to read something here, and then I want you to fill our audience in on something, okay? Before I get started, though, I wanted to read this. So before I begin, I want to be transparent about where I stand. I have real concerns about medical assistance in dying, not about the compassion behind it, but about what it signals to society over time. My worry is the slippery slope that normalizing assisted death, however carefully regulated today, shifts something fundamental in how we as a culture value life at its most vulnerable or at its most vulnerable. That said, I'm genuinely here to listen and to understand your perspective. We live in a moment where social media flattens every complex issue into a battle between two sides, and nuance gets lost. I think sitting down face to face or over the internet like we are today is one of the few places left where we can actually explore something this profound with the honesty and care it deserves. I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for your time. So, on that, sir, welcome. Welcome to Unscrew the News.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I know you and I've had a number of conversations, and I certainly like this opportunity. Like I say in my preamble, it's very hard to have a real conversation or somewhat of an argument with somebody on social media because you have, I think, limited words. So it's almost like you're throwing darts at the person, but trying to have a respectful conversation. It doesn't happen. And anyway, do you mind just giving us a little bit of background on yourself before we get into this tonight?
Okay, well, you did a pretty good job at it. Basically, I got involved way from the beginning, starting with Sue Rodriguez and then Carter, Gloria Taylor, the law, the bicameral vote in the House of Commons and Senate discussion and meetings that happened before the law came. When the law finally came, I became one of the first ones to do it in Canada because I was already in BC, CLA, and Dying with Dignity. And in Ontario, we had they call LIN, Local Health Initiative Network. And the one that I'm in comprises of Ottawa all the way up to Kingston, maybe 2 million people. I was the only one doing it at first. So I did most of my cases in Ottawa, which is a bigger city. And then I taught some people in Ottawa, and then I moved back to Cornwall. Doing MAID. I mean, I did it in the community, and I'm fairly old. So as somebody else started doing the community, I'm now doing it only in the hospital. And I see do one case a month about it.
Yeah. So you told me a story, and I think that it would be beneficial to the audience to hear what gave you the impetus, I guess, to get involved in MAID, and you wanted to offer it. And it was a very personal story. Do you mind sharing that tonight?
No, I don't mind. Actually, it started after Rodriguez. My mother got Alzheimer's about 85 years old. And then she died in 97. At first, it's kind of Alzheimer's kind of fun. They get giddy. They lose their inhibitions, and it's okay. But then the last 2 years was just horrible. She with that haggard look all the time, couldn't keep her dentures in, choked all the time, fell, did not recognize us,
Yeah.
So I was looking for a way out of this. But unfortunately, even today, until we get advance directive, she would have been in the same situation. But that's what got me involved, basically. That was my personal story.
Right. So when your mother was going through dementia, I know I've lived through it through family members, and it is very hard. I mean, it depends. Every person and every situation is different, but it's hard on all parties. And I can understand, living through some of that as very difficult. Do you mind just one of the things that you had said to me was, just so that we can set the table here, is that you had said that you had done approximately 100 or more than 100 of these procedures
roughly around
the span of this time.
It sounds like a lot, but if you look over it over 10 years, it's more like less than one a month.
Oh yeah, it's not even one a month. So now, one of the things that Okay, so I'm just going to show a couple of things. You and I talked about this, that I think, because we're going to go back and forth, right? So I'm gonna say what I think, but I really want to hear more about what you do and why you do it. But I've got a couple of things set up here, and you and I talked about this already. I'm going to bring up this video. Oops, hang on one second. There it is. I'm going to bring up this video, and this is, you know what? I don't know. This is fairly recent. And as far as I know, it's the Ontario's chief coroner. Let me see. I'm just going to read the headline here. It says, Euthanasia on Demand. Ontario's chief coroner has documented MAID deaths driven not by illness, but by poverty, loneliness, and lack of housing. The Liberals are housing illegal foreigners in hotels and import more to take away jobs. Oh, anyway, that's not my point here. So I'm going to just listen. I'm going to play this out here and we can listen to it. Hopefully you can hear this. Okay.
Euthanasia on Demand. Ontario's chief coroner has documented MAID deaths driven not by illness, but by poverty, loneliness, and lack of housing. Approximately half of those who died by MAID in 2024 reported requesting it because they felt like a burden to their families, friends, or caregivers. These are not necessarily people dying of terminal illness. These are Canadians failed by a system that chose to offer them lethal injection rather than the support and hope they needed to live.
Okay. So did you hear that, JR?
Yeah, I heard that, but of course he's purposely reporting the words of a chief coroner of Ontario. I'm unaware that the chief coroner of Ontario has said that.
Right. I just want to get your take on what he said in regard to half of the people that had requested MAID were saying it because they felt like a burden to their family. Are you seeing this in the cases that you're seeing, or are you seeing mostly cases where they're terminal? They don't have any options. There is no recourse as far as maybe outlook that they're going to get healthy again. What are you seeing as far as that's concerned?
This has not been the case for any of my patients. When we do fill what we call an MDR, which is a medical debt report in Ontario, they ask us a lot of questions about why are they requesting it. There's about 20 things in there. And yes, being to feel a burden to society is one of them. So we might check that, but there's a lot of others there, and that's one of the. If they pick up just that one and say that's why they requested it, that is a little disingenuous. So, like, I mean, that's most of the patients that I did. Like most MAID provider, 80% are cancer. They're usually terminal enough, like weeks or worse months to go. And actually, I would say that maybe 20 patients out of the 100 I've done, not all of those 100, but didn't make it. In the days we used to have a waiting period, and even after that, because the hospital is slow working, and if they ask, like today on a Thursday, it's impossible to do it at least till Monday. Sometimes they wait too late, and then they die before, or they're unable to consent to the final consent.
Right. Do you feel like this might be beneficial? I think it might be beneficial. I didn't ask you to do this before, but do you mind walking through the process of having somebody apply for MAID, and are you one of the doctors that says yes or no? Do you mind walking through that process? Let's say that I want to apply for it today. So how does that look, and how long does that take?
Absolutely. Actually, I just saw a patient this afternoon, so I'm going to tell you how it goes. She's an unfortunate one. She's a young one. I shouldn't say she, but anyway, you don't know who it is, but it's a person, and 47 with cancer, diagnosed just a few months ago. And you're diagnosed, it's already metastasized in 3 places in her abdomen and lungs. So she doesn't, I'm not very good at prognosis, but I mean, it doesn't look good. So she's considering MAID, but she's also thinking, should I have radiotherapy, chemotherapy? So I told her there is no rush, consider both options. Obviously, if she decides not to have radiotherapy or chemotherapy, which is her right, people do not have to have that. So she definitely qualified. So I told her you would qualify. And I'm the provider, I'm the first assessor. Yes, second doctor would have to go see her if she decides to go ahead. But I've made it clear to her that it's her decision all along to do it if and when.
Okay.
Now, so in this case, so in this case, since it's a hospital, I don't do as much work as I used to do in the community. A lot of work is done by the social work. They will contact the family, talk to them, correlate, and so on. And I'm more like the caretaker type of thing, rather than like most of the job is done by the social worker.
I see. So, are they coming to you to then fill out this request? Where are you in that process? So you're farther down. You said that it's taken care of in the community already. Is that what you said?
No, not in the community, because like I said, I only work at the hospital. So the social worker called me this morning. I had a patient called XX because they want to see the initial in such a room. She has signed the clinician 8A. So the social worker, she's already signed the clinician 8A. Well, it is a request for MAID, basically. So that's been done.
Yeah.
But that doesn't oblige her into any way to continue with it. But she's requested it, so I'm seeing her.
I see. Okay. Now, so she is coming to see you, and then she has basically a consultation. Is that how you would describe it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So she'll ask for a consultation to find out her options. Is that also kind of what she's asking for?
Yes, but like I told her, I am not an oncologist. I cannot tell her what are the chances that radiotherapy will work. Please explore those issues. If you decide to go ahead, go ahead. And if you get a remission, so far the better. You'll get an exacerbation, and eventually your disease will get you. She knows that. So if it does come from MAID later, or even if you don't want to have the chemo after you've learned about it, she's got to learn about all the options. Then she can make her own decision.
I see. Okay. Now, what is the time frame? You mentioned that there would have to be a second doctor. So if somebody was very anxious to have this done, are there sort of roadblocks or speed bumps, I guess, is a better way to describe it, so that there's maybe a couple of things that, if it's not spur of the moment, you can't go and have it done in half an hour. Right. There's a couple of things that kind of get in the way, right?
No, you can't. And especially at the hospital, it works in slower ways. So, and I have a problem getting a second assessor. Look, we'll get into that issue too. Like, I'm the only one provider get at the hospital. There's 100 doctors in Carroll. There's only one doctor doing it in the community. Doctors in surveys say that 85% in favor of MAID, but yet 0.2% do it. Whereas I don't understand that. So if the main one that happens to be away and cannot do it sometime, like the last time the patient had to wait. He wanted to have it done. He was on his last mile, but we had to wait almost 2 weeks for the doctor to come back to do the second assessment, which is not correct, but what can you do? You can't force a doctor to do it.
Okay, so here's another question that's just come up while we're going through this. So why is it that you see that 85% are for it, but only, what did you say, 0.2% are actually doing the work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you feel? What's the is it their moral dilemma? Is that what it is, or is it the backlash from people, or
well, for like in the general community, some of them they're against MAID to start with. Some of them, we know by statistics that 84% are in favor. So why are they not doing it? We've been looking at this question for a long while because we don't know. Maybe they're the fear of the unknown. They fear that it's difficult. Of course, I'm an anesthesiologist, so I deal with IV of these medications all the time. But even for average doctor, it's not a very difficult procedure technically. Now, of course, there's the emotional part. People think that, I'm going to be involved with that. This is awful. But it's actually been the opposite. I mean, when we're doing anesthesia, especially back 50 years ago, when we didn't have the big centers in Ottawa. We do very severe trauma, remove lungs, to all kinds of complicated stuff. And yet I never got the self-gratification that I get by doing MAID, because I've never had a patient in the final consent when I asked them a second before I proceed, do you want to go ahead with this? You have a right to change your mind. I haven't had one that has shown an inkling of doubt in their tone or in their answer. And they're glad, and the family thanks me 10 times. So it feels good. I don't know why they don't do it.
So let's talk about that a bit more. So, because I think that's obviously a concern. That's part of why I reached out to you, is I wanted to understand that procedure. You're saying that it's a very rewarding experience. The person is very grateful. The families are very grateful. Can you sort of elaborate, I guess, on that? Because maybe you just give us an example of somebody that, and what they're going through, and it sounds like a bit of a relief on your end and as the family and on the patient. Do you mind just expanding on that a little bit?
Well, I can just, sometimes they use the word physician-assisted suicide. I'm not against that word, because basically you can call it whatever you want, but the patient decides that somebody's going to take his life, so it's akin to suicide. But like the real suicide that happens not in the context of MAID, the people that usually take their life by hanging or whatever, they usually agonize to make their decision. But once they've made their decision, that's what sometimes people don't understand. Oh, he looked so happy 3 days before. It's because he made his decision and he was going to do it. And it was so. It's the same thing there. I'm sure these people, it's not easy to make a decision like that. But once they made it, and they're happy with their decision. And it's not a burden anymore. That's basically it.
Right. And just going back to the story of your personal story with Mom, is that there's obviously that pain that family members feel, and as well as physically the patient is feeling. So there is that relief or that release when that's now going to be over. I mean, as a family member, if you saw your family person that was on their deathbed, but it was always so painful, there's got to be some sort of relief in that too, right?
Of course. And I think, like I think it's in the Carpe video that you made, in which he points that there's also something that I call terminal sedation, but the palliative care doctors like to call it palliative sedation. Well, they do palliative sedation for months, so I call it terminal, so they didn't want that word, so they call it continuous palliative sedation. I call it slow MAID. Basically, what they do is they start giving massive doses of the two drugs I use, basically. And they know that that the patient's gonna die in 1 day to now they stretch it almost to a week. And then religion loves
is that right?
The religion loves that, because they say, well, we're not really trying to shorten their life, we're just helping them along. Well, they're helping them along to death, basically, what they're doing, except they're doing it over a day or 5 while I do it over a minute. But
okay, hang on 1 second, Dr. LaFrance. Sorry, you got a little bit quiet there. So, do you mind going over that again? So you're saying that palliative care, they're really just shortening their life and strength or lengthening the process that you're talking about. MAID. Is that right?
I guess so. I'm not talking about palliative care as a whole. Palliative care can last months, even a year or more. But when you become sick enough, if they don't like MAID and they don't want to die naturally, sometimes the family will agree that let's speed it up, like give much more medication.
Oh,
so
I see.
They call it continuous palliative sedation as opposed to the palliative sedation that they use for months. I like to call it terminal because that's what it is. It's terminal. They're going to die soon after that.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to point out is that these people can do that with the family. And there's no safeguards of that at all. Yet I think it's the same result. And we get safeguarded to the hilt, But it's mine is MAID. There's a slow MAID. They don't like that term, but I'm sorry. It's really close to what it is.
That's the truth, right? Okay. Um, Now I'm going to ask you to do something. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you can't. But for me, and I'm curious. I'm just a really curious person. Do you mind telling us that procedure of when you walk into the room and then you're going to then, uh, end that person's life? What does that look like? Do you mind sharing those steps?
Okay, it's pretty well the same. Well, it's the same as far as the procedure. Now it's the patient that decides if they want to be alone with one person or with 30 persons, basically.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
according to this, like if it's only, for example, the patient and his daughter and husband, and I've already explained the procedure, I just will skip the first few steps. But if there's people there that I know that haven't been explained, I explain what's going to happen. And that's what I would tell them. You probably have had an anesthetic, most of you. Well, today is the same thing. It's the same medication that I used, for example, in this case, 12 times yesterday, except that when I give it to you for a procedure, like an operation, I just give you enough to keep you asleep and I don't give you too much to make sure nothing wrong happens. In this case, I
I
use,
see.
I don't say the word horses dose, but I say some mega dose, and I give 10 times of
Mhm.
those to make sure that they won't wake up from it. So basically,
Right.
that's what I
Okay.
explained. But then after I've explained that to the people, I've already explained that to the close family and to the patient the day before. Now my final consent comes in. So I tell the patient, I've told you, and you know, you have a right to change your mind up to this instant. Do you still want to go ahead with this? And like I said, I've never seen or heard or felt an inkling of doubt in any of the other patients I've done. They all have decided and they're calm with their decision. Then I proceed with the procedure. It's like going to sleep for an anesthetic, basically. I just flush to make sure the IV works because that's important. When it works, we give a little
Mhm.
local anesthetic so the second medication doesn't burn, but it's not that bad. I don't think we even need that. Then I give a very strong tranquilizer like Versed. Uh, so when we usually give that for you for an operation, we'll give you 1 cc and then proceed with the rest. We give them 10 cc's. That's not enough to cause the medical aid dying, but they're oblivious at this time. Then I give the propofol, which is the one that does the work. And instead of giving 7, 8, 10, 12 cc that I gave to my patient, I give 100 cc. So there's no way they're going to come back with this, but it's the same for them as going to sleep for an anesthetic. They go peacefully.
Okay. So just so I'm really curious, and I do like to have my details. So it's three different things that you give the person.
Yeah.
So the anesthetic, which is it's an injection, or it's
Well,
like
they're all
in the
injection.
drip
They're
in the
all
IV.
intravenous. They're all
They're
intravenous medication.
okay. So are you giving them a needle, or is it through the IV, the
It's
drip?
it's through the IV. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's through the IV. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And so the anesthetic and then the Versed, is that what you said? Versed?
Versed is the first one. WCC, that's a heavy tranquilizer. But if we give them only that and they'll leave the room, they would stay very groggy for half an
Yeah.
hour. They'd wake up. So then we follow it.
And then they wake up.
They would wake up, yeah, but we don't. We follow it with more propofol, and then we give a medication called rocuronium, and that's the one that has caused a lot of confusion. And the reason we give
What
that
is it
is
called?
rocuronium. It's a muscle relaxant. It
Rocuronium.
paralyzes the patient. I don't think that is really needed, but I don't know why they put it in the curriculum. Basically, because I think that there's a possibility the patient, as they're dying, they get muscle spasm, move, something like that.
Mhm.
So I think it's mainly for the onlookers rather than the patient. We don't need it. The patient would pass away without that medication anyway, just as peacefully.
Right. Right. So you don't want, I mean, obviously the people that are there watching, the family members, the
Yeah,
friends,
that's it.
they would might be a little bit
Yeah,
shooken or shaken, I guess,
that's
from
it.
something like that happening.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I totally understand. What was it that I wanted to bring up? Okay, so these procedures, uh, Versad, propofol, rocuranium. I hope I am saying it correctly.
Yeah, correct.
Um, and then how, I know I'm getting very personal, not personal, but I mean, I want to sort of dig in because I want to understand. So after the rock uranium, how long does that take? How long is it always the same? Is it seconds or is it minutes or what does that look like?
You mean before the heart stops, or before the brain stops, or before they stop being?
Yeah, before I mean physically or visually, you would, I guess, be looking for the heart to stop because that would be the most visible where you would feel that the person is gone. Is that correct? I mean, that's what I would think.
Well, like I said, after the 10 milligram of Versed, I tell the family he's completely unaware at the moment, you know. But you need the other medication to cause the death. Just being
Yes.
heavily tranquilized is not enough. So then we proceed with that. And then when does the heart stop? We don't know exactly. I used to have the patient on a monitor, you know, but people didn't like that. Click, 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 click.
Right.
They didn't really like that. So the hospital didn't like that. The patient didn't like that. So we're basically, after we give the recording, the heart still beats, but the patient's completely stopped breathing and the brain has stopped functioning. But we don't know exactly when it's going to stop. It's going to be sometime in the 3rd to the 5th minute after that. We don't know exactly. I don't
3rd to the 5th minute.
Stop and see. It doesn't really matter. What we do is we come back 8-10 minutes later to do an official time of death. We don't know. The death has occurred 3 to 5 minutes before. We don't know exactly. We put a stethoscope to a couple of it, and then we saw the death is 13:58, let's say, but it happened at 13:54 or 5. We don't know exactly when.
Right. But you walk away and leave the family and the patient there without you. You go away and then come back. Is typically what you do.
At that time there's a nurse and there's a social worker. And
I see.
If there is a significant other, I have taken the habit of talking to her or him and saying, you know, I pity you. I don't pity your husband or wife because that's what she wanted. She's happy. She's in a happy place now, but you'll be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I discussed this with my wife, and we both want to go first because we don't want to be left behind, and you'll be left behind. So I tell him that.
My wife does the same thing.
Yeah. So that's usually one of my little thing at the end, and then I leave and come back, put it to bed, and that's it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. That's thank you so much. I think that's it clears up a lot. I mean, because it's like going to the light in the tunnel. I mean, you never know what is happening until you're actually there and making your way. So it's very enlightening to me to understand that.
Just an aside that I'm thinking now. One of my patients, when I asked him, "Do you still want to do it?" He said, "Yes. Beat me up, Scotty." Just like in the movie, he made a joke because he's going to die.
Yes. So I think I'm sure I would do that too if I was in that moment. What was my question that I wanted to ask you? It's very interesting. Again, you know, this is just something that I have to understand, you know, to really wrap my head around. And I think it's like you and I talked. I think that people need to understand it. They don't necessarily need to agree, but I think that it's a good place to be where you're able to share this with people so that there is a better understanding of the procedure and what the families are going through. Because, like I said, I can't make a decision for somebody else, and nor would I want anybody else to make the decision for me.
Correct.
And so, you know. Yeah. What else did I want to ask you about now, Dr. LaFrance? I'm a little bit speechless here for a second while I'm trying to figure out what I was going to ask you about. Okay, so we're going through that. I did want to ask you. There was something else that came up. Oh, I know what it was. So when you're sitting with a person and you're asking them one last time if they're set to go, their mind is still set on that. You said that nobody has ever changed their mind, but at that moment, if they change their mind, what would that look like to you?
Well, they have they decided to change their mind. And I tell them right from the beginning, you can change your mind until the last second. Nobody has, but if somebody has, I would respect that decision. I would not feel bad or anything. Say, well, you decide,
Yeah.
you're the boss.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting place to be. Now, was there anything else that you wanted to share? I'm kind of at my end of asking the questions because I really wanted to understand that procedure. So, was there
Well,
anything else that you want to share with people?
well, the procedure I told you, there's anywhere from 130 people. This is a funny one. Somebody had a very late cancer of the pancreas, and he was a friend of country music, and he wanted to have a last celebration of life. And so he invited 30 people to his medical aid in dying, and they all had little, like that, and around and singing country music, and he was looking at everybody. I don't want anybody to cry. You understand? Let's have music and this and that. and then I did my procedure, and then everybody cried. But it was a very different one. That was the only one I did.
Is that right? Hey, okay. And the location of this, is it always at the hospital? Is
In
that
my
where you
case,
do it?
in my case, it is. But once I was doing it in the community, and the physician do it in the community now, do it in their home. A lot of people do it in their home.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, I mean, we're hearing all kinds of, I guess, stories that are coming out and of where, some of these things are happening. I mean, there's kind of a little bit out there, and that's part of why, I'm a little bit skeptical of the procedures in general, or
Well, you're right.
why
You're
the
right.
Canadian government.
We discussed the case of a Dr. McLean. The name is in the news, so I'm not confidentiality breaking here. And it looks like he obviously did follow the procedure. First of all, as you know, there's a track 1, which is what I do. There's a track 2, in which death is not reasonably foreseeable. In other words, you're very disabled, neck from down, whatever, and you can't speak or whatever, but you have your mind, and you're young, and you could live another 20 years in that situation. That's track 2. There's a 90-day waiting period for this, and you have to have expertise in their condition to do it. So I don't consider myself competent enough to do that, so I don't do that. And that Dr. McLean did it. It looks like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make a judgment, but it looks like it was a little cavalier. He just met the guy in a parking lot. He didn't wait the 90 days and all that. So,
Yeah.
But you're not gonna, we've convicted 3 people that didn't commit the crime in Quebec that I just read last week. He spent 3 decades in jail. Are we going to get rid of the justice system because there was a mistake or there was something that was
right?
Wrong? So I don't.
Well, there's always going to be bad actors.
Exactly.
There's always going to be bad actors, right? Doesn't matter what.
And people disagree on supposedly he's still going to do medicine, etc., and he's going to be reassessed and etc. I don't know the whole details, but I trust the system. I think they picked him up. They're going to reevaluate him again, and if they don't think he's able to, maybe he won't ever do MAID again. Maybe he'll do other things. I don't know the answer. And there's also a couple of other cases that have been in the news, like the one from Ontario that ended up being done in BC. Like there's some doctors will probably push the envelope a little bit, the same as it happens in every other special. But again, that hasn't been my experience, and you cannot let these 2 or 3% tarnish the whole thing. And again, I don't know if you're going to get to this, but we're talking about the increase in case. Okay, 3 big things I want to talk about.
Yeah,
MAID is now the 4th leading cause of death in Canada. This is completely wrong. MAID is never the cause of death. MAID is just the mode of dying. If somebody's going to die in 2 weeks from, like the patient I described this morning, let's say I do her in 10 days, she would have been dead in 2 months from the cancer. We can't put MAID as the cause. It's the cancer that's caused her to ask for MAID to die in a certain way, rather than a slow MAID or natural death. So The court realized that right from the beginning. So where did I see that here? Okay, the court decision back in 2016. This will require a death certificate to not be completed by the treating physician to ensure the accuracy of the real cause of death. So just say that it's the cause of death is completely wrong. It's not the cause of death in any case. Not the cause, it's the motive.
Okay.
That's the thing that the
well, I guess.
And then they say that, okay, we have 7%, I think, in Quebec and 5.6, I think, of deaths now are with MAID across the country. And we see this is increasing by 30% all the time. Well, of course, because we're new compared to Belgium, who's had that for 30 years. But if you just look at the latest statistics for this year, only 7% increase this year as opposed to 24 last year. So I think we probably have plateaued. Time will tell in the next couple of years, but you know, as it gets, a lot of people don't know about MAID, so now, of course, we're getting more. But I don't think it's because doctors are canvassing people to make money or whatever. And again,
we certainly hear the stories. Yeah, we certainly hear stories of you know, veterans or maybe somebody that's that does have, you know, a certain amount of pain. We certainly hear those stories where somebody comes back and said they offered me MAID because I was you know, really ill in the hospital or whatever the case is. I know that they seem a little bit explosive, and you know, there's going to be those extreme cases, right, that are going to come up and that are going to be newsworthy, and of course it's going to paint it in a bad light. I guess I wanted to ask you about the percentages, because I did bring this up here, as far as, you know what, I'm just bringing it up here for some statistics, but Canada, and can I just say this is my thought on the statistic that it's you know, 1 in 5 deaths are caused by MAID. I think it's semantics. You know, they're saying obviously that it's caused by MAID, but I think that you're right, and they're both right. Is that they're the reason for the death is more of a terminal illness, but they've chose to end their life early. Who knows if they were going to live longer, or if they were going to have some sort of a better life, you know, had they not chosen MAID. But I guess that's up to them to make that decision, as we talked about already. In regard to that case, and I'm going to go back to that if we can. In regard to this case here with this Dr. McLean, in London, Ontario, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned it, and it's the track 2. Yeah. Do you mind just giving us again, go over that procedure for track 2? So it's a different procedure as far as the time that it takes to get through that. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Like they make it a little bit more arduous?
In 2021, there was 3 things that happened, 3 corrections to the original bill of 5 years before that. First of all, the 10-day waiting period was eliminated because we found out that a lot of people lost their capacity to consent or died within those 10 days, and they were sure of what they wanted. So that was eliminated for a good reason, I think. Now, a second track that became, if you remember, the name was Gladu, and the other one was Truchon. These were 2 people that went to the Supreme Court of Quebec, and one was very paralyzed from the neck down, in a wheelchair, all cramped up and whatever, having pain from spasm all the time. Anyway, he said that although his death was not reasonably foreseeable, he was suffering intolerably and has a grievous and irremediable disease, except for the not reasonably foreseeable death. And they won in Quebec. So the pressure was on Ontario to do something. You could not have, you know, people would all flock to Quebec to get done. And so anyway, they passed a law saying a track 2. But for a track 2, instead of eliminating the 10-day waiting period, they increased it to 90 days. So there would be more time.
I see.
Since the death is not reasonably foreseeable, patient might live years. What's the point of hurrying? 90 days seem reasonable.
Yes.
And they also asked the doctors with perhaps a special expertise in the area. In other words, I could not do it. It would have to be a physiatrist or somebody that has expertise in the disease of the person. So that was.
Oh, I see.
So
So
that's
somebody that has a specialist in their disease and what they're experiencing.
Exactly. I could not.
So they have to sign off on it, and then
Yeah.
obviously there has to be other doctors that sign off on it.
Yeah.
Not just one, right?
Exactly. 2 doctors, and the provider would probably not be the physiatrist because he probably doesn't do that. So then they could ask me to do it, or some provider or sometime. Also, at the same time, they
Right.
did 2 other things in 2021. They introduced a waiver of final consent. I explain what the final consent is just a few seconds before I proceed with the procedure. Now, that final
Right.
consent with that new ruling could be waived. If we give you an example. Somebody has a cancer of let's say the lung, but he's got metastasis to his bone here and there, and he has a metastasis to the brain too. So I'm afraid that this patient tells me I won't MAID in 2 weeks. Now I'm afraid he's not going to be able to do the final consent in 2 weeks. So I can make him sign at that time a very complicated form in which I tell him about 10 things that he have to initial. And eventually, if he does lose his ability to consent in the 2 weeks that he was supposed to have it, I could have it done without asking him at the last minute if he wants to have it done. So that's kind of a short-term advance directive, if you want, but it's called a waiver of final consent. And also they put another thing. Mental illness was supposed to be available to mental only people at that time. Now they pushed that back to 2027, as everybody knows. Now this will have to be decided sometime in the next year or less whether they will proceed with. This is a very contentious issue, so it's not really, to me, that important. I understand, theoretically, I'll give you an example very close to me. My godchild was a depressed person all his life. I didn't even know him. But his mother told me he committed suicide last year. And he told me he's been followed by psychiatrists since he was in his teen. Now, is it fair, because it is mental, that he cannot, and he's suffering intolerably enough that he committed suicide by himself by hanging himself, that we have to deny them weight? So that's the theory. But I understand the reservations of people because it's hard to decide when is it final. I mean, in the news they say, well, in 2027 we'll be able to take an anxious teenager and kill him. Well, no, that is not what's going to happen. But should somebody like my godchild, maybe they should be considered, if you want to be theoretical. I don't know. But anyway, that's not really the main thing to me. So mental illness, I wouldn't not be pushing it that much. But there's 2 other things. And by the way, these 3 things were already, they were introduced in the first legislation. They just didn't do it. But they told the government, you have to look after these 3 things. And basically 10 years later, we still haven't. So advance directive is what's important to me. Again, we go back to my mother. At the moment, even today, my mother could not have done anything different. But I'm hoping that for some other mothers somewhere that are in the same situation, when we have advance directive that we will probably have next year, we would have them by now if the government was not always prorated, or how do you call it, whatever you call it, prorogated, whatever. So they don't do anything, but basically this will come next year, I'm pretty sure. The next issue after that is of some importance.
What does that mean? Sorry.
If you can do it when
what is the first thing that you said?
18 years and 1 day, why can't you do it before 18 and minus 1 day? We don't know. Where do we draw the line? Some people at 16 that have neuroblastoma can suffer as well as an adult, and maybe they know. I don't know. I'm not going to make big thinking. Advanced directives to me is the thing that has to be looked after. But major minor will be.
What is the advanced directive?
Also, what will happen? I don't
know. Dr. LaFrance, what is the advanced directive?
That's about it for that.
Is that the one that they sign ahead of time when you think that they might not be able to make the decision? Hello. I'm speaking. You can't hear me?
In case that I'm still alive and Bruce is not around, There's misconceptions I wanted to talk about. The first one is people drowning during the procedure. This is, like I said, I give those two medications to patients about 10 times a day in the endoscopy suite where I work at the present. Those patients afterwards say, I had a nice sleep, everything went well. Nobody drowned. This is a misconception that started maybe 30 years ago, where they were executing inmates in the state with people that did not know how to start an IV, on how to use medication. This does not happen. And I think I
Okay.
mentioned also that the leading cause of death, they say is the fourth leading cause of death is now MAID. It's not MAID. MAID is the way they die. It's the cancer or
Right. It's the
whatever
way
that
that
has
they.
caused their death.
Can you hear me?
Slippery
Can you hear me
slope
now?
versus fine tuning. Well, some people say there's a slippery slope. I don't think there is a slippery slope. It's just that it's improving. We're fine tuning it. Just see, might be me. Sorry, are you there, Bill?
Yeah, I'm
Bruce?
still here. I'm still here.
I don't know if
Hello,
I'm still
hello,
live,
hello.
so I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, well,
Is that my
wait a
guy?
second.
The guy is trying to talk to you and it's not working.
Okay,
C'est qui ça? C'est Lisa?
it's Bruce. No?
Oh, c'est qui ça?
Oh, Lisa, what do you mean?
Well,
No,
Lisa
I'm
is-
still here.
I think Lisa is hearing you.
Sorry. Hello, Lisa. What's that?
I'm still here.
Okay, well then I will. What will I do? I don't know if I keep talking.
You just continue. Just continue.
What's that? So if people can see me, I don't know if I should still keep talking. Okay.
We can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay. All right. So sorry, we're having some communication problem. So I think I'm still live, and Bruce can interrupt me anytime if he can get back to talking to me or cutting me off or whatever he wants to do. I will talk about one patient. Like I said, 85% of my people are cancer in the last miles. Some are ALS. A few were COPD, bad COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And I remember that patient especially. I asked her, do you suffer physically, psychologically, etc., from your disease? She said, doctor, I suffocate 10 times a day, but I never get the gratification of actually dying. I mean, if that's not psychological and physical suffering, I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Now,
So,
if I had to,
can you hear me now?
be in the shoes of any of my patients, I would have done like them in most cases. There's 2 or 3 that I would have decided to wait a few months more. But again, I cannot substitute my decision for their decision. That's their part. Again,
All right.
I think the issue of MAID is also an issue of pro-choice. People can decide. I'm not trying to tell people not to have MAID, but they can have a right to choose to have MAID. And often they try to compare it with abortions. I think the abortion issue is very different than MAID. In abortion, there is a mother and a fetus. So that's 2 entities. In the case of MAID, it's only one person who decides what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And I think that's their prerogative. If they're not being coerced and they can make a decision and they've been explained all the alternatives, I think it should go on.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Dr. Friends? Dr. LaFrance?
Again, because
Hello?
something is not perfect does not mean it has to be abolished. Yes, we talk about Dr. McLean. I could talk about 2 other cases, one in Saskatchewan, one in BC, in which maybe the boundaries are being pushed a little bit. But again, it happens in every field. I think generally it's been looked after good. I remember in the first 5 years that I was doing this, we used to have to call the coroner personally, talk to them, and he would grill us about what this, that. Do you have the clinician aid? Can you send us a copy? They found out that after 5-6 years doing this, they were finding very little things that were wrong. So they simplified it, and now we just fill the MDR. And if they find anything that ain't doubtful, then they call us. But I get very few calls. I think it's the safeguards are there, and they are doing pretty good. It's been 58 minutes, so I don't know if Bruce can break in or whatever. I don't have much else to say. Discussion.
I can't.
Bruce.
Yeah,
you are correct.
I'd love to have a discussion with you.
There is too much polarity in this world, and we're not as far as we think, even though we think we are. Thank you for having me with your show. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. LaFrance, I've cut you off because I appreciate you, but you can't hear me. All the audience, I think you can hear me. So I am grateful, Dr. LaFrance, for being here and having that wonderful conversation and being respectful. It has been wonderful. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and I'm going to see you on the other side. And thank you for your daughter reaching out to you. I do appreciate that. God bless you all. Dr. LaFrance, I know you might not be able to hear me, but thank you so much for being here. God bless you. All right, you guys, I always like to say, let's keep our head on a swivel. Let's stay sane together. And this is Bruce, and I'm out of here. Thank you so much for watching Unscrew the News. I appreciate your participation in freedom in Canada. Share this information and help others to wake up. God bless.